Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Can we have roll call, please?
John Righeimer.
Here.
Stacy Hessel. Here. Mark Helwig. Tom Duffy. Here. Jeff Haney. Here. You have a quorum.
A pledge of allegiance. Please read the certification of compliance.
This meeting was noticed to the media and the public as required by section 19.84 of Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. The meeting agenda is set. Do we have any public comments online? No? Okay, so we'll move on. We will now consider approval of minutes from the previous meeting.
I'll second it.
Motion by Tom Duffy, second by Jeff Haney. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Minutes approved. Number 8, Treasurer's Report. Brian.
I attended a WCCO conference March 4th and 5th. First day was talking about the statutes that apply to the treasurer and clerk position. The second day was the Act 235 and Act 207. The 235 is the judicial shielding that's coming up. I know that Register of Deeds has been pretty active in working with that. And the 207 is the new interim of where we can now no longer keep the proceeds for the properties we sell. We completed the writing off of the 2024 tax bills. These are tax parcels that we have acquired in 2023. We got to get them off the tax roll. So otherwise we're just writing checks to ourselves for these. So that was 17 properties. We mailed current owners. We started out with 42 of these properties that are going to be going up for us acquiring in August. So we sent out letters to those 5-year delinquent parcels. We got the lottery and gaming payments that came in March 24th. We dispersed the monies out to the schools and to the townships. You could see the amounts there. The Sawyer County, just a little over $207,000 that we collected on the lottery credits. Started out with delinquent tax mailings, March 13th. Since then, we've received payments for over 800 parcels for $818,000. And on May 14th, we'll be hosting the District 7 treasurers. They're all coming here. And you can see the parcel table on the bottom of where we've improved on. In January, that was around January 31st, there was close to 1,200 parcels there, 1,100 or 11,000. And we're down to 8,831. And we also have, of the 42 parcels that were up for acquiring in August, we're down to about 31 of them now. So we've gotten people to pay on them. Any questions?
It's good having you here. You have a question, Mike? Or you're just getting ready to go? All right, thanks, Brian. Finance Department report, Mike.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Starting with sales tax, March was another good month, up a little bit from last year. We're on pace for over 3.4 million. Not anticipating that. I think we'll probably end up around 331, but the model is showing that we're going to get to 3.4. Any questions there? Moving on to the 24 budget report, just a little bit of activity from the last meeting. This is reflective of the fund balance transfers or surplus transfers that were approved last month. If you get into like page 3 of this. up on the top of that, that shows we had budgeted 750,000, ended up having surplus to 2.135 to make HHS and highway a little healthier on the books. The next page, again, shows that all of the transfers are done. The one thing that's not really reflected in here is the assignments that we made both to ambulance and sales tax, because they're still in fund balance, so they aren't deducted from that, but they are, we have made those assignments as well. HHS, they had a little bit of revenue from last time, so they aren't going to have to draw as much from their fund balance as anticipated last month when we did the transfer, be about $171,000. So that's great. It was, I think, 246 last month. Highway Department, the depreciation is still not booked. It looks like we're sitting really pretty there. Depreciation, I think, is 483,000. And then after deducting that, we'll have our unassigned fund balance pretty much to zero. Might still be a little bit negative. Depreciation came in a little higher than I anticipated. But we're still in very, very good shape. The work we did last year, those transfers really help those two funds help to become healthy for the future. Any questions on 24? 25, we're now through March, a quarter of the way through the year. We transfer that property tax every month, so that's always going to be right on. So that can always be your cue for how far we're into the year as well. Interest investments or interest on investments, we're on pace right at 25%. We'll see later, the rates have come down pretty significantly now. So, but we'll talk about that when we get to that page. So when I look at the revenues as a whole on the general fund, we're about 1% over. That's due to several of our departments are running a little bit ahead and usually do and usually end up over for the year. So it's good news, we're a little bit over there. On the expense side, we are also 1% over. That is not alarming because, as I've mentioned before, in Department 33, which is all of our partner organizations, we pay them out in January. So we're at about 71% of that department's already paid out, and that's on almost 1.4 million. So that's a big number. So if I subtract that out, we're in very good shape. HHS, there's always a little bit of a lag on the revenue side just because we're doing claims. So that's not alarming to run behind. Expenses, there's always a little bit of a lag there too with some of our invoices we receive, but we're in good shape for this time of year there. Same with Highway Department. Highway definitely runs behind because everything is booked in CHEMS, which is a specific to highway program. And then Teresa books everything into New World the next month. So we are always about a month behind there. So that's not atypical to look like the numbers are that low for this time of year. The good news is we're running a surplus in it. Any questions on any of that? Moving on to CIP purchases, there just was not a lot of activity. The Birch Dam repair is actually in Washburn County, but it's on a corner that we benefit from. So we do have an agreement to pay for a portion of that. Fish trap is the big one we're working on this year. Some of the engineering has been done. And then just a couple small items, a little bit of maintenance in the jail and new tough books for the squads, for the sheriff's department. Any questions there? So then next, we have another assignment of fund balance. This one is for dental. For 2024, we elected to self-insure our dental program. We saved some money. Both were able to hold premiums down for staff. Well, it's actually, that's what it is. We don't pay for any of this out of pocket. So the reason we did it is to hold the premiums down for the staff to keep their cost in bay. At the end of the year, the difference between what we set for premiums versus what we paid out in benefits was $7,774. So what this would do is put that in a separate assigned fund balance so that if we have a year that's low or we overspend, we can draw from that. And then if it gets built up enough, if we get over 30% of cost, which I believe dental's about 130,000, then we would look at actually reducing premiums for our staff. We want to keep a little fund balance there because there's always a run out. And in case we ever started to have bad experience with it and wanted to go back to fully funded, that run out for probably through March would be on us because it would be expenses that were incurred in the year prior to going back to fully insured. So we want to keep a little fund balance in there, but we don't have to worry about keeping a lot. And it's a small dollar amount anyhow. So any questions with that?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to assign the fund balance for dental.
Motion by Stacy Hessel, second by Jeff Haney. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Anybody opposed? Resolution passes. Thanks.
All right. Next then is the 2026 budget timeline. Can't believe we're talking about that already. Seems like we just set the 25, but here we are. I was thinking about it this morning on my walk to work. When I got here, I haven't even been here quite 3 years yet, and I've worked on 6 budgets because we were wrapping up audit for 21 when I got here. Obviously worked in 22, set the budget for 23, 24, 25, and now 26. It's crazy, but it's fun. This is about a month early from when I usually bring this to the finance committee. We have a couple of newer members, so I wanted to give an extra month for a look at it, and not expecting anything today, but look through it. And if you have any questions or want to make any suggested changes, let me know. And we will actually have 2 months yet. We'll look at it again in May, set it in June. Right after the meeting, then I put out a notice to all the department heads on the process and when to expect things. And this is very similar to last year. The one thing I did move up is posting in the newspaper so we don't run into a problem there with not having enough. The difference that will make is there may be a couple more changes from when it's posted to when we actually present an admin budget to the board, just because there won't be as much time to get through everything. So any questions on it immediately or wait until next month? All right, moving on.
I guess I do have a question quick.
Sure.
So the state is holding the Joint Finance Committee hearing April 28th at the Hayward High School. Is there anything that you are going to bring it to attention or want any of us to bring to attention?
I'm planning on going to that myself just to hear. I don't have anything right now, but I might by then. But I do plan on going. Good morning, Mark. So moving on to the department financial updates. We've already looked at ambulance once. This is one we're keeping on a quarterly basis. So I did not put the 24 in there again because we've pretty well closed all that out and looked at that last month as the catch up from January. So far in 25, there are some changes from a typical year, and we've got some really good news here. If you look at, again, general property tax is always going to be at the month we're in, so that's at 25%. But if you look down on line 3, ambulance fees, we are hitting the target, which we have not had great luck at doing that so far. So that's good. We did reduce the number a little bit. The target's a little lower, but we're hitting it and keeping on pace, which is very encouraging to me. And then if you look at use of prior year's fund balance at 355,000, that is the surplus from 23 that we were able to reduce the ambulance levy in 25. So that reduced taxes by $355,000 roughly. So that was another point of good news for this budget. Won't be that much next year because 24 surplus was about 50,000. But we will take that and reduce that from the 26 levy as well. Beyond that, everything's looking good. We are running a little bit ahead, especially on overtime salaries. I know Andy's kind of on top of that. Meeting with John, so we'll keep up with that. And other than that, expenses as a whole are at 26%, so we're just a little bit ahead, and a lot of that is due to the overtime. So we do need to keep on top of that and make sure we're okay. There is a chance we'll come out a little bit over budget because we did adjust salaries kind of after the budget was set. So it's possible we'll be a little over. But they do have some fund balance to absorb that if that happened. If you look at the very bottom line, it looks like we're at a deficit. If I had, and I'm going to start doing this, that amount from fund balance, we're going to do some of that monthly. If I had done that, we would actually have a surplus right now. Because we're a quarter of way through the year, that'd be about a $90,000 drop from fund balance showing on the books, which would put us in the positive. Any questions on budget and where we're at? All right, then moving on to the EMS-MC report. Again, we're moving to their kind of canned report, which actually has a lot of good information. And it's hard to read, it's small. But if you look at the call log, we were up in January, number of calls. We're down in February, but that will get added to, because as I mentioned before, this report comes out early, but then the next month and even the following month after that, it will change. So the calls had been down for quite a while, but January was up again, so above average. Again, the graphs are similar to what you've seen from me before, where the green bar, the straight line, is the running average, and the blue one that goes up and down is the month by month. So it's not drastic that we're up and down, but it varies a little bit. And then that average loaded miles, it has a number that's not correct in there, is still in there. She was going to look into that, and obviously it's still there. Then looking at the collections, or the charges versus collections, we've got gross charges of over 3 million out there right now for the 12-month period. About $1 million has been negotiated down, which leaves net charges of just over 2. Out of that, we've collected about 33%. Again, don't be alarmed that the percentage goes down, because that number goes up as the collections happen. These take a lot of times up to 3 months to collect from insurance and Medicare, Medicaid. And then on the last page of this, with the pie charts, down a couple more right there. Just looking at the aging percentage, right now we're at right around 50% current. I did look back, and typically over the course of the last 12 months, we're running 25 to 30% with a high of 40. So having that high of a current percentage is really strong. And then one thing we also had always looked at is the percentage 120 days or more, where if I add the yellow bar, the blue bar, and the green bar on the left, that's about 23%. We've typically run 25 to 30%. So again, we're running under there, which is also good. That means we're collecting before they're getting out there too far. Then looking at the pie chart on the right, if I add up Medicare, Medicare Advantage, Medicaid, Medicaid MCO, we're at about 60% of our payments are coming from that. Our accounts receivable are sitting there. So again, we're very reliant on Medicare, Medicaid for our roads. Any questions?
I do have a question. So if the new clinic out at LCO, if they provide ambulance service, will that help or hurt us?
Well, if they take away some of our runs, that would hurt, because we still are gonna have to staff. But then we won't have as many runs to generate revenue.
But would that help the situation at Round Lake though too, if they have a an ambulance at, because it's, right on B and K, so.
It potentially could help response times, having another service, but again, it isn't going to
It
do our
depends
revenue
what
any good.
their
Right.
service territory is gonna be.
Sure.
If they're gonna, I mean, if they're gonna be responding to 911 calls, the, because we operate a county service,
Mhm.
we're responsible for all calls in the county. So they'd have to establish their service territory, the town, like, the towns then would have to, well, yeah. I assume that they want them, if LSO is gonna operate an ambulance, if the town wants that ambulance to respond to the calls in their town, they're gonna have to direct our dispatch with those instructions. And so then we wouldn't respond to those calls. So that's gonna answer your question on
Yeah,
if it helps Round Lake out.
I just didn't know if that was a partnership that we could be involved in. I mean, I know it's different government entities, but if that's something, I had talked to somebody and that's what they were considering. So if we can be proactive, that's all I was.
Oh, yeah, there was, the only thing, our ambulance administrator mentioned a couple months ago was that he had a conversation with the LCO. I'm not sure, I thought it was the fire department. They were talking about, starting, they asked to have an ambulance based out there. And then if we wouldn't do that, what would happen if they started their own ambulance service?
Mhm.
So, I mean, 911 calls are money losers. We're subsidizing every call, so potentially if we have to subsidize less calls, especially if those are calls that are not private paid, financially, it wouldn't hurt us.
Mhm.
We lose some revenue, but we're also lose the subsidy we're providing to every call. So we would need to coordinate with them who's responding to what calls. Right.
Andy, we could kind of have the same situation we had down in the Birchwood area, where we would go to the call and their services would be going the call also,
Yeah,
because we're responsible either way.
it could be the same, but it probably would be better because at least Edgewater is on the Four Corners ambulance is on the Washburn County radios. So they get dispatched. We have to let Washburn County know Washburn dispatches Edgewater, or excuse me, Four Corners to Edgewater. And then there has been no direct communication with our dispatch after that. So I assume though, if ambulances on LCO, they're on our radio system, so we would be able to communicate much better.
Any other questions? All right, then moving on to highway. Starting with 2024. First, I just want to say that John is really doing a good job with budgeting projects and coming in at a really close to budget. I know that's kind of his background, and he's doing a really good job. And Teresa's doing a great job too, as far as booking stuff, doing the accounting, and she works with Randy and I on when she has a question, but she's doing a really solid job. So I just wanted to mention that. So 24 in general, I'm not going to go through all of this. We've kind of talked about their bottom line before, but we had some give and take. General maintenance, we came in a little bit over budget. Winter was a little under. Construction was basically right on. State highway maintenance was right on. We're a little bit over in district maintenance, which explains why we had to do a little higher of a transfer than we were planning on, but overall, just really came in well. Then moving into 25, we've got budgeted 2 million in road construction, which is a little higher than normal. How things played out with being able to under levy ambulance compared to prior years. And then we had planned on doing the levy for what we're going to talk about later that we didn't do. We were able to put a little more into highway through both road construction and then CIP, which also included some road construction. So some of the projects that we're going to be working on is County W North and CC, kind of between B and the landing bridge. John's still working on those, but that's what he's kind of planning on. And again, he does a really good job setting those projects up and coming in really close to what he had budgeted. And, we're setting budget now for projects that are gonna happen a year later, so it's a tough job and he's doing a great job with that. As far as detail with 25, right now we've got, and this is on page 50. You want to scroll, I guess you'd have to go to okay, you've got it pulled up by 25. So on the first page, I'm on page 1 then of 12. Sorry, I thought you had it by the full packet. So you can see that we have a transfer from the general fund planned of 169,000. And that is part of the $2 million. And then the capital improvement project or plan transfer of just over $1 million. That is from the CIP. A lot of that is equipment, but also a couple of those specific road projects that we were going to work on this year because we had some room to do it. And again, their revenue would be higher if I had prorated those transfers in. The CIP one I usually do at the end of the year when they've done all their purchasing. But if I had done it all along with a prorated amount of that transfer from general fund, we'd be at about 22.5% in revenue. So that would be much closer to the 25% guide that we should be at. On the expense side, there's really nothing to point out this early. I know John has mentioned it seems like we've had a mild winter and wouldn't spend a lot, but the things we've had cost a lot. Like salt is very expensive right now. And when we get the ice storms, that potentially is worse than having to go out and plow. So just wanted to point that out. But expense side right now, we're at 14%. That's not atypical because we've got $2 million in summer projects that we haven't started yet. So we're always going to run a little behind this time of year. So any questions on highway for 25? Moving on to the investment report. You can see that the interest rates have dropped. We're down about 1 whole percentage point from a year ago. So right now, our CDs are looking really good compared to what we're getting for the money market rates. At the time, they didn't look as great, but we did it assuming rates were going to come down, and they have. We do have the Franson Bank and Trust $3 million CD that is maturing in May. So in May, I will come forward with some proposals for renewing another $3 million CD to replace that one. The rates obviously aren't great right now. You can see what we got in our last CD that we took out. But it would give us a chance to lock in again in an environment where it looks like rates are going to keep dropping. So you can see, if you scroll down just a little bit more, please, the interest earned is being affected. Looking at the operating interest more than the total interest, because we did have some debt service we were earning money on a year ago. But we're down, 7,000 from a month ago and 13,000 from a year ago just on monthly interest earned. We are on target to hit the budget, but not be over like we've been the past 2 years. ARPA unspent, still that $200,000 that has been sitting there waiting on 2 broadband projects to be completed. I have filed the necessary paperwork with the government for ARPA. I'm showing that we've committed that $200,000, we just haven't paid it out yet. And everything else has been paid out. Any questions on that? All right. turn it over to Andy for the radio system.
Finance, Public Safety Radio System discussion and possible action.
So in February, when we passed the resolution committing to the public safety radio project and we had a tentative budget and general layout or proposal for the radio system from GenCom. In there included that we were going to come back within 2 months with a final project budget for final approval. So public safety did get a updated proposal from GenCom last week. It's within, our estimated budget was $2.825 million. The general layout of the system is the same. And the estimated cost is within that $2.825 million. So we're going to leave the budget as is, and that included a contingency. And so I guess wanted to cover a couple things. If you want, I can go through the GenCom proposal, but it's relatively the same, that they're going to have 6, potentially 7 tower sites around the county. At this point, they're only projecting to having to build 1 new tower in the Draper area. The other towers would be leased in the Meadowbrook, Edgewater area, and then also the WOJB tower. The 7th tower site that would come into play is in the southeast corner of the county. That would be using an existing tower at the Flambeau Correctional Facility site, and that would fill in a little bit of that corner of the county that's hard to reach from the other tower sites. Equipment as is proposed, it'd be microwave backhaul. These would not be connected by fiber. That would be, have to happen in the future if you wanted to do that. So we want to get the project moving forward. I did pass out a resolution if you want to have a resolution to go to the board. It's pretty much the same resolution that we had in February, just that it's references resolution 25-8 that we were to come back with a final project budget, which would be the $2.825 million. And then we enter into the contract with GenCom again, and it would commit you to financing the project. The recommendation is to do it through debt service. It's not something, something you're going to start looking at in the next few months and decide when this year sometime you'd want to move ahead with that based on finance director's recommendation. It could be state trust fund loan, the bond market. Things are in that area, like interest rates and bond issuance, are going to be moving around a little bit, we anticipate, just because of, the market is up and down. So some money's going to start probably moving back into municipal bonds because those are a little more predictable. So it's something you're going to want to time. It's not as if we need the money next month in order to go ahead, because like the tower construction won't happen until next year, most likely, once they get permitted. But a lot of the other hardware that will go on the lease towers will happen throughout this upcoming year. So that's why you have some flexibility. But the resolution would just says project budget of $2.825 million is approved with a commitment to finance the project with the debt issuance. So we wanted to acknowledge that it's going to be a debt issue, that you're not going to take money out of the general fund to pay for it. And Mike has passed out kind of a pro forma on what that would look like, so you can see that.
I ran a couple different scenarios. The first one being just a straight repayment on the $2.825 million. I'm just going through it. I've got principal and interest payments, total levy for that debt service portion. And then I did the TID out at a 1% annual increase, very conservative. We've been well into the double digits the past 3 years. So that comes out to about a 5-cent levy per thousand. So on a $300,000 home would be $15 to $16, up to 17 on the end with that low growth rate in the TID out. So it's got an impact. It's not a huge impact, $15 per $300,000 home or property. Then the second scenario takes into account our 2023 debt issue of 10-year issue that would be coming off the books in 3033, or coming off in 3034. Last payment would be in 33. So that next one, then I did lower principal payments on the front end increased them in those last 2 years to make up for the $420,000 payment that's coming off in '23. So it's just another way of looking at it that makes it about $13 per $300,000 for the first 8 years, jumping up to $28, $29 in those last 2 years as it replaces that other debt. That scenario does cost about $90,000 more because you're paying the principal on the back end, the larger portions. Not recommending it, just showing two different ways that we could do it. Odds are we'll probably be issuing something else within that 10-year period too, so I wouldn't count on this being the only thing to happen in that period. So it's probably, I would probably recommend the straight repayment and save the interest. Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the budgeting and financing for the public safety radio system improvements.
Motion by Mark Helwig, second by Jeff Haney. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? So approved. Any correspondence, reports from conferences and meetings? None. Future agenda items. I don't know if they're, I want to keep it on the radar, and that is the possible, I should say probable removal of Act 10, and just want to, so there may be months where we don't have anything to say, but I just want to stress that I think we need to stay on top of that, or ahead of it, maybe is a better way to put it, of how that may affect things that don't exist today that may be an issue for we have, down the road. So other than that, meeting adjourned. Thank you.